Good morning and welcome. Becky Carlson here, Independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. I'm excited to share some Christmas in July with you today. The first card I'm going to make, I'll show you here, is from our Perched in a Tree set. Here's the card right here. I'm going to show you how to get this background and this beautiful bird right here. So the first thing you're going to do is start with your card base, which for this one I use the gray. Basic gray. Here's my pieces. You might be wondering why I have some waves out here. This is our DSP, the waves DSP, and it's not really what you might think I would use for a Christmas card, but I'm going to show you how this is going to work. So here's our card base. I started with 8.5 by 11. I cut it down to 8.5 by 5.5. So this is our card base. I've already scored it. And this is our front and our inside. I'm going to start with this DSP here. What I'm going to do to get this the way that I want it is I'm going to sponge it with our Pool Party stamp pad here. So I just want to kind of soften this up here. So I'm just going to start off the edge of my paper. I'm just going to kind of fill in some of these lightest parts. I just really liked the different colors in the background as opposed to some of our other pattern paper that I could have used. So it's just going to give us kind of a stormy background. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside. And then I will move on to my bird. So I'm stamping these on some watercolor paper. The watercolor paper is very porous, and so I'm going to stamp it a couple times. Ink it up real good. This is the rubber mounted because of the detail, so make sure you don't rock it and get those edges on there. Nobody likes edges on their stamps, on their stamped images. So I'm probably gonna have to stamp it a couple times just because the paper is so porous. It soaks up that ink real quick. So we need to give it a couple impressions here. Looks like my bird is the one that's I'm having to do the most here. Now the reason I'm using watercolor paper as opposed to our basic white is because I'm gonna watercolor this. In our basic white, you can watercolor on there, but after you get so much water on there, it starts to bead up a little bit, which is normal. But we don't want that to happen on ours. So I stamped this, and then I'm going to show you how to get this bold coloring on here. Now, one way you can watercolor is to take your stamp pad and push it together. That's the way we used to do it, and use this as your palette. And when I did that, the card that I got was this one right here. Very pretty, but look at this one. Much bolder, right? Much richer colors. So I'm going to show you how to get this one here. You're just going to take a block or any non-porous plastic surface, put a couple inks on here. This is our Pool Party. Just going to put a couple drops of our ink on there, and then soft suede. This is well loved. Put a couple of drops of that on there. Then you can use a paintbrush with water if you have it, but we have these amazing aqua painters that you can fill with water. The new ones look a little different. They're clear. These are the old ones. Same idea. So they've got water in them. So you're just going to take your image, pick up a little color here, and then just brush it on. I always feel like I'm an artist. You know, that's what I like. Feeling super creative. And since it's watercolor, you don't have to stay exactly in the lines. You can, of course, nothing against staying in the lines, but to make it look kind of watercolory, I like to purposely go out of the lines just a little bit. Then, of course, you can let it dry a little bit. You can heat set it with your heat tool. Go back and add some more detail or some more shading on there. These are easy. You just wipe them off on a rag. You just scribble them off on your paper. Then I'm going to move to my blue. I'm going to give it kind of a light wash at first, just to get the blue on there. Start it absorbing. I just love this color of blue. You'll see why I chose that wave background paper, DSP, because it picks up the greens in this blue. It's kind of a green undertone in it. So I liked that better than some of the other blues. So I'm just going to go over it lightly at first, just to get some water on it. Then we're going to do some of the brown, pick some of that up and do his little belly. See, it almost has a green in this brown as well. So we're going to pick up the greens in here in our paper. So now that we've got it wet, got the paper awaken, you go back in and pick up a little bit more and make it darker where you want it darker. You could also color this little birdie in with your blenders or whatever, chalks, anything like that. I just wanted to show how pretty this water it is when it's watercolored, and it is Natural Watercolor Month. I'm also going to add a little bit of brown into the blue areas, just because birds have, you know, different colors all over them. And I'll go back to my blue, pick up a little more of that, and add it darker in here. Thinking about where the shadows might fall on this guy. It almost looks like a peacocky color, I think. Peacocky, I think that's a word. Anyway, we'll get a little bit more blue on there. Over in here, you can even blend it in, because birds in nature, they don't have distinct lines per se. So we can get it all messy together. You can even let it dry and then go back and add more color. That's the fun part about watercolor, is it's pretty easy to work with. You can kind of fix a lot of things. Okay, there we go. Then for the feet, I am going to go ahead and use this other method I showed you, because I just need a tiny bit on here. So here's my paint palette now. Just pick up a tiny bit there, put on his beak and on his little feet. I don't want very much water on there because it'll just blend a little much. And then I can even add a little bit of orange in here and there. All right, so there's our bird and our branch. Set those aside. Make sure you don't lay something on that. Okay, so I'm going to set this guy aside and let him dry for just a minute while I cut out the front piece of our card. So this is one of the sets in the mini catalog, and it comes with, well, you can buy it with the bundle. So it's got these dies in it. You see there's some flowers, some leaves, but there's our bird and our branch. But it also comes with that beautiful tree trunk or tree silhouette in the background. This guy right here. Honestly, when I opened the mini catalog and flipped through it the first time, this is the set I wanted, the very first. I absolutely loved it. I'm just going to pull my embossing machine up here. You get to watch me do this one. Just open this guy up. Put in our cutting plates. Mine are very well used. I did this card in a class this weekend, and it got very, very loved. Okay, so my paper I've cut to just a bit smaller, like we normally do on these, to have a little bit of a border. So this is 4 by 5 1/4, and this set right here, this die is going to barely fit on here. So when you position it, you want to just position it to where you have just an even sized border all the way around. So you see those are about all the same. It'll just fit on there. This would also make a really nice 6 by 6 card. It would fill it up nicely. Okay, so I'm going to run this guy through, and this is one of those dies that works really well. Everything just pops right out. So I love that about it. Get the glare from my light, so it just pops out here. Let's get all these extra pieces out. There's a couple tiny pieces that you have to poke through sometimes up here in the trees, and that's when we love to have our take your pick tool. Just pop these guys out. This tool is so handy. I have a couple of them so I can have all the attachments out at once. Got the little brush, got the little spatula, which I use a lot. Okay, so I'll set this aside. This card is actually pretty quick considering what it is, how it looks. Go ahead. So here's our background that we already sponged. It's nice and dry. We're just going to layer it right over that. So I'll take my adhesive. Since this is so detailed, you definitely want to use the liquid glue so you don't get adhesive peeking through. Oh look, I missed one little spot. This guy right here, he thought he could sneak in. Nope, we gotcha. Okay, so then we're going to just put it on the outside. So we're gonna layer on top of this, so we don't need tons of glue all over it. It'll kind of hold itself together with the other layers. So I'm just gonna put it around here. Take him, he should fit perfectly on top of this DSP that I cut to the same size. We just want that to peek through there. There we go. And I'm just gonna layer this right on top of my card. I didn't pop it up or anything for this one. I just let it lay light. You could pop it up. If I was gonna pop it up, I would probably put another piece of cardstock behind this DSP just to give it some more stability for that pop up, but I did not do that on this one. I just glued it straight down. So now we have that nice border all the way around the outside. Now I still have my watercolor, or my aqua painter. I still have it kind of dirtied up with the brown. I'm actually gonna take it and I'm gonna add a little bit more water to it. That was a little bit too much. That's okay. A little bit of water on there. And then while this is sitting here, I'm gonna flick it. Just to give a little bit of nature look maybe. Then I'll set this aside. That's why I didn't clean it off at first. Now I'll clean off that aqua painter, just squeezing it into a little rag I have off to the side here. So that's all that. Okay, so that's our base. We can set this aside, and then I'm going to go back to my little birdie that I watercolored. Pull out the dies for him, which I have right here. We'll go ahead and cut him out. So here's our bird, here's our branch. Now the branch is the hardest one to line up on this one, I feel like. I had a little bit of a struggle on it, so I'll show you the tip that I came up with, or that I discovered. It's not really coming up with something, it's more than just figuring it out. Get my cutting plate back on here. So when you lay these guys on here, the branch, it's hard to see because it's just kind of wobbly there, right? So I found if you line up this end, so you can see both sides, and this guy, just make sure this part goes between the branches there. If you have a little bit of washi tape or a Post-it note to hold it in place, that's real helpful. Washi tape works just fine. I have so much washi tape. I think I had a little bit of an addiction for a while there. So just line up, just make sure this guy goes kind of between the branches there, or the pieces of the branch. Stick him on there. The bird's a lot easier to line up. Just kind of go around the outside. Make sure you don't cut off his feet. He would be a sad bird if you did that. Okay, then put this over the top. I'm going to flip mine because it's getting a little bowed. Keep it tight. Looks like we shifted a little bit. I haven't had my breakfast yet today. I think I'm a little shaky. Gotta do the fun stuff while the 7-year-old is still sleeping. Here we go. Run this guy through. Cut our little branch and our birdie. Put this guy away. Got our branch, got our bird, got our card base. Now we just assemble. Now this guy's a little bit longer than I need him to be, so I'm just gonna snip him off just a titch at the edge here. And I'll glue this guy directly on here. Again, I'll put a layer on under the bird. I'll pop the bird up. So I want to put him up high enough that I have room for my sentiment. If you remember our original card here had this sentiment down here. So I want to make sure it's up a bit. So I have room, but I also have room for my bird. So you might want to lay it out and measure. There's my little branch. And then my birdie, I will pop up with some dimensionals from down to the end. I feel like giving myself a prize whenever I get to the end of a sheet of dimensionals. I use every last bit. You guys do that? Like I want to use every last bit of them. Not that they're expensive at all. They're definitely not. And it's my go-to add-on whenever I'm doing an order and I need just a little bit more. I add on dimensionals because they are something I always need. Put this guy over here. Give him a lot of stability under there. Fill up this part. Now you could go back and you could cut I had one gal cut nicely around her little feet. If you care about that, go ahead and do that. And there's that. Now I purposely cut my bird out of this bigger piece of watercolor paper so I would have room on the same sheet to punch out my label. I think it will work. I'm just going to punch him out over here. You could stamp first and then punch him out. It doesn't matter which way you do it. Whatever floats your boat. I'm hoping he fits in here. This is not the one I used before. Yeah, he'll fit. So I'm using the Wishing You Abundant Joy and Peace. And we look for the piece. That's how I know which one it is. There we go. Just stick him on a block. Okay, we'll put him on here. Get our black pad out. Again, these are the rubber mounted, so you want to make sure you don't catch any corners because it's real easy to do with the rubber mounted. I'm just going to stick him on there, hope that he's straight. There we go. Then I'll add a little bit of that same Pool Party. I've still got some on my brush on here. And then I just wanted to tie it in with a little more color. So that's why I added that blue bit behind there. And you can just cut a little strip. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, just to stick behind there. I'm going to glue this guy on. This is Pool Party as well, this blue. So I'm going to make sure I'm straight using my grid. I was not quite straight. There we go. Then I'll just use some more of my dimensionals on here. That'll help hold that together as well. Stick these guys on there. I don't know, when I feel like I leave a trail of dimensional peelings wherever I go. I love them. Okay, so I'm just going to stick him down there. And there's your card. Of course I went back, of course I did, and added some Wink of Stella because it's my favorite thing. And this is the new one, at least new to me. I bought a bunch a long time ago and they're finally running out. And the new one has the clear side, which I love because before I was always, which end? So now I know for sure. So I'm just going to add a little bit of shimmer to my bird and to his eye. A little bit on here. And this one you can also squeeze it down, get it real juicy, and then flick this as well. Give a little sparkle in the background. So there is my card. A little bit different than this. Every time you watercolor, it comes out a little bit different, and I love that. So there is that. You can add some more twinkles on here, whatever you want. I will just put a white card on the inside. This one I did side opening. This one I did top opening. So either way, it doesn't matter. Here's another version with the cardinal because it's a little more Christmassy. This is real red mixed with the sweet sorbet actually. So I got a little bit of orange in there. And this one I left it a little more white so it looks a little more wintry. This one got a little goober on it, but there's those ones. And again, here's the difference between the re-inkers or going from the stamp pad. I think this looks a little better, but I think they're both fine. They both look great. So I hope you will try some watercolor, some background. Look at your DSP a little differently. Maybe you have something that will work in a way you didn't think of. Got some waves back here. Anyway, I'd love to see what you come up with. Have a great stampin' day.